episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime on trending criminal cases. And this is one that has been in the news since 2022, November 13th, to be specific. And it is a horrendous, perhaps our most horrendous case. 4 young college students murdered before even having a chance to enter the prime of their lives. We've got Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, and of course, Maddie Mogan, all murdered in their home in Moscow, Idaho, the home of University of Idaho, on 1122 King Road. Tonight, a potential game changer in this case. We've got word of a potential new eyewitness. Let me bring in the best guests. He once ran for Utah Attorney General. He is a ski instructor, a public defender, and a criminal defense attorney, Greg Skordas. Next up, another outdoorsy type woman, and that would be Tara Malik. She is a defense attorney out of Boise, Idaho, and has been on this with us probably since the beginning. And last, but certainly not least, we've got a therapist, a psychologist from the great state of Oklahoma, now living in Greenville, South Carolina, who also works with inmates occasionally, Dr. Roger Rhodes. Rod, you got us clear?
Yeah, thunder up, buddy. Now is the time to live in Oklahoma, buddy.
Raj, before we even get started, I watch 2020 and Dateline religiously. That's how I probably ended up becoming a host of a true crime show. But last night's show, which is a few weeks old because I get to them late, took place in Greenville, South Carolina. It was a guy who was a piano virtuoso. He went to the Juilliard School and murdered a woman, he says, to save her child who was reportedly being abused, but there was zero evidence of this. Do you remember that case?
Yes, I do very much remember that case, and it was making everybody in Greenville scratch their head. It just absolutely did not make sense.
Yeah,
he would tell a story like he was putting his hand on the Bible, but everybody else was going, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's known as the rose petal murder case because there were rose petals scattered about. But I'll say this. I might have to move to Greenville. It looks beautiful. I mean, absolutely stunning.
Love it here. Yeah, God's country. Well, it's second God's country. First God's country is in Oklahoma. Second's in South Carolina.
But in the first God's country, there are EF tornadoes that will throw me up into the sky and throw me back down.
You know what they call tornadoes in Oklahoma?
Monday?
Spring.
Spring, yeah, exactly. There you go. So we've got some news. Greg Skordas, a DoorDash driver, sort of inadvertently comes forward saying, and I'll tell you why inadvertently, saying, I saw Bryan, I parked right next to him. Now, this is the woman who claims to be the DoorDash driver. She arrives at about 3:59 in the morning and is delivering food to Xana Kernodle from, I believe, I want to say Popeyes, but I'll double check that. She, in body cam footage, which is very odd, tells a police officer. Now, this body cam footage is from this past September 2024, during a traffic stop in Pullman, Washington, which is where Bryan Kohberger himself was pulled over by Washington State Police, Washington State University Police. But this now is a stop in Pullman, Washington. She's a 44-year-old woman, and she casually tells the police officer, and I quote here, now I have to testify in the big murder case too. I'm the DoorDash driver. I saw Bryan. I parked right next to him. You ran for Attorney General in Utah. You're Bill Thompson here. You get this. What do you do with this?
Well, I think what you'd want to do is try to corroborate it and try to make it more credible and say, I mean, some people might want to get a little publicity, might want to do or say something that gets their name in the paper. So I think the state's going to say, okay, what was he driving? What was he wearing? Where were you? What was the time? And then maybe they can get some corroborative evidence that shows that by maybe his cell phone pinging, something like that, that he was in that area at that time. If that's the case, she corroborates something that he said and done, and that is consistent with the state's theory of the case, and it might be very, very helpful.
Tara Malik, the defense has previously argued, and we know that they have their alibi that he was just driving around at night because he likes to do that. But the defense has said in motions, and I quote from one of the motions, there is no known connection between Mr. Kohberger and the residents of the King Road home. We know that there was 2 other roommates, nor with the DoorDash driver. Do they have to reverse course? I mean, conversely to what Greg was saying as a prosecutor, what happens here if you're a defense attorney, if you're Ann Taylor? What are you trying to do with this?
Well, I think the credibility of the witness is going to be key here. It sounds like from what has been published that there may be some issues with her credibility or her prior criminal history. She may have one. So if you're the defense, you're going to be taking a really hard stance on cross-examination and trying to figure out whether this person has any sort of motive to lie. You're going to try and figure out whether there's some criminal history there that indicates a tendency to lie or to be dishonest. The same things as we talk about with other witnesses, right? How did you see it? What did you see? Where were you? What was your vantage point? Are you actually able to identify this person as the accused Bryan Kohberger or not? So they're going to be asking all the nitty-gritty details to try and figure out or trying to discredit this witness.
When did the driver originally come forward is the question in the chat from Andy K. And the question is the driver. And that's a great question because I'm not really sure of the circumstances. And by the way, shout out to Kevin Fixler, 3-time Idaho Reporter of the Year for the Idaho Statesman. He broke the story early this morning. I got a little bit of a heads up, but obviously did not say anything till it ran. And I said to him, hey, is this kind of thing where we can do an entire show on this? And he said it's a pretty big deal if it is true. So henceforth and therefore, here we are. There's some other things going on though as well. But Raj, and I don't know the exact channels, but again, Dr. Rhodes, this comes to the prosecutor's attention from body cam footage from this past September. So the person didn't come forward, but somehow the government got the information. My question to you, Raj, this is arguably the biggest murder case in the country, maybe the biggest over the last decade. And DoorDash has been talked about a gazillion times. If you're the DoorDash driver and you saw this guy, why are you telling this to a police officer in September of this past year? Why would she have not come forward earlier? I mean, I understand people get nervous or scared. They don't want to talk to police. Is that what is happening here? Or is it something deeper or more shallow?
Well, I think it's hard to evaluate what that is. But on a base level, she's just covering her butt. That's it. That in case she's called, in case they see something, she's going to do it. And I would think since they're chasing her, she will appear more credible than put me on the stand. And, so I can be, my face can be in front of millions of people.
Yeah. Poetic Justice with a great point here. Obviously, we're not talking about the same DoorDash driver, but he says DoorDash still owes me $78, so I don't trust them. The other day, Uber Eats, I'm no longer drinking them again, but they forgot my Coke, and I was not happy. Cooler by the Lake, this doesn't pass the smell test. So, Greg Skordas, what about this? I mean, this is potentially in the biggest criminal case over the last decade, which is what I will call this, because I think it is, and potentially the biggest witness in this case, if this woman really did put him, because it corroborates the timeline. I don't know the exact steps that led to this, but I mean, if you're Bill Thompson again, who was the district attorney, what do you have to do to corroborate and make sure that this is a reliable witness and not just some woman who wants attention from a case that is sure to get tons of it and already has?
Well, first of all, you want to do exactly what you just described, because this case could fall if the state decides to put a witness on, especially a witness of that caliber, that much harm to the defense. If that turns out to be a bad witness, your case is going to go badly. So the prosecution needs to do everything they can to make sure that this witness is credible, that she's not getting anything in return in terms of financial assistance or getting out of her own criminal charges or boyfriend's charges or something like that, that whatever she says can be corroborated or at least not discredited, that whatever she says cannot be proven to be incorrect. So you'd also want to know, really, because it's going to come up on cross-examination, why the delay in reporting. She may have recognized the Joel after the fact, or excuse me, Bryan after the fact, and thought, well, this is the case. I got to put two and two together. And so there may be some reason for the delay in reporting, but you can't put somebody like this on, Joel, and have her fall apart, especially because she's going to be one of your top, maybe your first or second witness.
Yeah, good point. This, of course, is Ethan, Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana in that order. Ethan is a triplet. One of the triplets is speaking out in a new doc that I'm going to get to toward the back half of the show. But Tara, to you, this is an interesting comment here, especially in light of the recent Dateline. And we did a show on that last week with Kevin Fixler and others. But Criminal Mind here, I find it very strange that we are now getting all this information coming out so close to the case. I mean, in the Dateline episode, we got a lot of stuff. What do you make of this? Is there someone, Judge Hippler obviously was furious after the Dateline case, not at Dateline, but at a potential government leak. He's threatening to look at devices and compel attorneys and others to turn over their phones. But is this kind of par for the course? I mean, there's nothing about this trial that is normal. It's a huge death penalty case, but does information on high-profile cases, in your experience, come out or leak out as we get closer to the date?
Well, I think that this case is unique in a lot of ways. I mean, it's 4 murders. It's college students. They were all very young. I think it's received a lot of attention from the get-go. And, as to whether or not the timing of it's strange to come out so close to trial. I don't think it's strange. I think that, this case and the attention on it has gained momentum since it started, and it's been pretty consistent. I also, know that there's been a gag order, and as we get closer to trial, everyone's trying to get more information. We don't really know anything at all until we start hearing these witnesses testify and seeing what physical evidence is admitted in as well. And so I think the gag order and kind of the quietness of the parties around this case have increased interest in a lot of ways. So you hear a lot of speculation, and there is a lot of misinformation that swirls out there as a result too.
And Raj, to you, just back to the psychological aspect of this, just to sort of underscore it, this is a woman who literally could be a 44-year-old woman at the center of this case. It sounds like she wasn't craving the attention because
that's a plus.
Yeah.
But I think one of the viewers said it very well. It doesn't seem to pass the smell test. And I think that's going to be very important, that the collaboration of whatever comes out of her mouth will make it smell right. Without it, it's going to look not well, and she's not going to look well, and the case is not going to look good, well. That's going to be a key element to it. But I think that there's thousands of, in silence, there's thousands of misinformation that gets out there and very little truth. And that's why it's good they're going to court. In court, it's going to be black and white. Either it was there or not there. They either did it or didn't do it, this kind of thing. And it will, knock down speculation. But I love the viewer who said about the driver, it doesn't pass the smell test. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's important. I mean, we kind of make fun of that, but psychologically, we want to believe people that their vibe is believable. We want their vibe to be believable if we believe them, but without, collaboration, doesn't smell right.
Yeah. Shout out to Catherine, K9 Catherine, who's in the chat, almost 2 years. Black Widow, I believe, at 2 years as members. Two of her obviously longest serving members. Let's say that. So thank you. Tara, let me work backwards toward you. What's Ann Taylor doing right now? She's Bryan Kohberger's, public defender. And by the way, she got a little reprimanded because it's hard to believe, but she is handling a second death penalty case as we speak. So is she filing a motion, like a motion in limine, saying this can't come into evidence? She can't be a witness. What happens here?
Well, if we're talking about the DoorDash driver, remember, these folks have gone through a really long period of discovery, which is the exchange of information. So the state had to, and its agents had to turn over everything that they had as part of the investigation that was relevant to the issues in this case, the claims and the defense, potential defenses here. So I would be absolutely shocked if she didn't have this information. I don't think that's likely at all. I think this individual was likely in those documents, especially if they had been identified as potentially someone who could be a witness at trial, whether or not they were actually going to testify at trial. I think if you're Ann Taylor and you're gearing up for your hearing, the last hearing on whether or not to continue this case as a result of the leak in the Dateline episode, but I think you're also gearing up for a hefty challenge of cross-examining someone like this. So I think she's probably has her own team of investigators looking into the background of each one of the witnesses to determine credibility and the best angles to kind of poke holes.
Yeah. Good points. D Love of God here. Didn't law enforcement, and this is a great point. I mean, Greg Skordas, I believe we've heard that they have. I mean, I imagine they would have had to have interviewed the DoorDash driver. So what about that? She was interviewed by investigators and forgot about this till the body cam footage shows, is revealed.
Well, they probably would have reached out to any potential witness, including the DoorDash driver, if they knew about the DoorDash, and they probably did. So if in fact they did interview her after the homicide and she didn't know anything, they're not going to use her now, probably, and that would really taint her credibility. If they didn't, or they just didn't think she was relevant, then it goes on the state. What were you doing? What were you thinking? Why weren't you being more aggressive in interviewing people? But yeah, it's kind of this new late discovered evidence can really be a problem for both sides. And if the defense counsel says, hey, look, I need some time to find out more about this person, they may get more time. But yes, you would have expected that law enforcement would have interviewed everybody, anybody that even is a potential witness in this case, immediately after it occurred, and try to get as much evidence as possible to put the case together for the prosecution to file it.
5 Tara is always here for this story, so we appreciate it. So much evidence gets lost or doesn't get followed up on until years later. Do you agree with this comment? Is there a lot of evidence that falls through the cracks in these sorts of cases?
I don't know that I would say it falls through the cracks, but this was a massive investigation. Multiple states involved, multiple agencies involved. And you're trying to run down every lead you can if you're a law enforcement officer or investigator in this. So there are some things that just get pushed down the priority list. I mean, you're going to can't do it all at the same time. And so it takes a while to sometimes wind your way into or talking to someone that you initially didn't think would have any information that was relevant. And you sit down and speak with them, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, geez, no, this person is great. Like, this is going to be a great witness for us. So that is time consuming. But investigations are supposed to be complete. They're supposed to be really diligent and detail oriented. And so that all takes time. It's not a, AI robot that we can get to do get through all the evidence and get through all the interviews in an instantaneous sort of way.
By the way, Tara, you can tell me, are you using AI now in your practice to just sift through stuff faster?
I don't generally. Maybe a first draft of a thank you letter or something, but I don't trust some of the stuff it comes up with. I had a couple clients use it, and I was like, "Don't do that, please."
Yeah. Well, I bring it up because our original case, they said in court, the defense attorneys for Don Adelson, that because they got 100,000 emails recently in discovery, and they're using AI to sift through them. But I don't know how much I would trust that. But Greg Skordas, back to you. You've been doing this close to 40 years. Two things. Have you ever, and I think I've asked you this before, have you ever had a case in 40 years that was a quadruple homicide or close to it?
I have not. That's a big case, and that's one of those cases that just doesn't come along very often.
Yeah, that I guess is seems pretty clear that it wouldn't happen often. But the same question I just asked Tara, do you find that even in smaller cases that evidence will pop up, not necessarily get lost, but it will, it'll show itself after the fact or later in the investigation?
Well, I agree with Tara, and I, as I usually do, I would say this though: if this was a drunk driving case or a weed possession case, yeah, things might fall through the cracks. But when officers arrive and there are 4 dead bodies, they are at their most heightened alert. They're at their most willing to do everything humanly possible to try to find out what happened here. So it would not make sense, and it probably didn't happen, that something fell through the cracks. It would just be, there's no excuse for that to occur, because you can't lose a case like this, Joel. If you're the state of Idaho or you're the Moscow Police Department, and you file a case like this, you better have your ducks in a row. You better have the evidence together. If you're going to put so much energy and so much money and so much time into a quadruple homicide, like I say, 43 years, I've never done one. That's the kind of case that you, as law enforcement and prosecution and whoever else is involved in this, medical examiners, whatnot, that they're going to take as serious as any case they've ever done.
Yeah. She made a comment that she saw Xana in the window, doesn't pass the smell test. There's definitely some questionable things here. And you would think, but look, Aria Dakota Grimaldi Lane, our friend in the UK, saying, yes, she saw him in all caps to underscore it. It's interesting. Seems like, and you know what, Dr. Raj, let me ask you a question. This case already now has a lot of, I don't even want to use the C word, a C-O-N-P, and you can fill out the rest, C-O-N-S-P. But there are people here who are absolutely convinced of this person's innocence. And then you go to the Karen Reed trial, which is now going into, I guess, the 3rd day of deliberations. Now, imagine a 3rd Karen Reed trial.
Okay, wait a minute, Joel.
But
Joel,
yeah, yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you an age question. Okay.
Yes, please. I'd love to.
Have you ever had a drink of water from a garden hose?
I have, yes.
Okay, then I'd ask you, in drinking water, how much water got by you?
Quite a bit.
Okay, I think we've got a garden hose situation here where information is coming in heavily, and even though they're all being diligent, you can't consume it at the rate it's coming into you. And so that's easy for things to get by.
No, I agree. But Raj, let me ask you this. So here's a comment right here, right on cue from Coffee Cake. Bryan is not guilty. There's already I guess I'll use the word faction. There are a lot of people now who are coming forward and saying he was set up. Same with Karen Reed. Exact same thing. She was set up by the police. And what is it about human nature that is creating this division in these cases where I don't want to say half and half, because I don't think that's the case, but where there is a large enough quantity of people making noise on either side? What's happening here?
People get an identity from being contrary, that they get noticed by being contrary. That's what's going on, is that, well, I'm not really somebody and nobody's really listening to me. And if I agree, I'll just be one in the crowd. But wait a minute, if I take a counter position and a non-popular position, ooh, people are going to know, they're going to, whoa, what's this person saying? And this person must really have an insight and that kind of thing. And so there is a lot of power in being contrary in America right now.
Yeah, and by the way, I agree. You cannot, I mean, totally different magnitude of cases. You cannot compare. The only thing I'm comparing is the division. That is it. So I agree with you.
And it's out there. And you know, you can go to the ice cream store and get people, I like this flavor, I don't like this flavor. I mean, that's America.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it is. Greg Scortis, to you, I guess the question is, how important is the timeline here? Because now she arrives, this 44-year-old female DoorDash driver, and says she sees him around 3:59. And off the top of my head, I want to say that police or investigators say that the murders happened, I think, between 4:09 and 4:25. So you've got this woman seeing him literally at 3:59. If true, how important is this to tightening the timeline?
Well, I think it's really important. I mean, just think of that, 3:59. We're talking a.m., right? I mean, this is not in the afternoon. It's not when people are out hanging out. This is a timeline that you would remember. The homicides occurred at a timeline that is significant. It happened in the wee hours of the morning. So if the state's putting the case together as I expect they are, and they have their theory of the case, and they have their puzzle, if you will, that they're put together, and they're going to say, on or about such and such a date at this time, this crime occurred, and she can establish one of those elements, or one of the even the sub element that something occurred at a certain time. That's very critical. That's very helpful to the state. Even if you just limit her to something like that and say, look, she's one of 25 witnesses. We've got 24 more, but she's going to fill this gap, and she's going to fill it really, really well. And then we'll put the rest on and show the jury that in fact he's guilty.
Yeah. And Tara, just to put a bow on this part of this, and again, shout out to Kevin Fixler for breaking this, and she is now apparently going to testify. So, you know, I asked you about motion and limines and filing things, but what happens with this actual human who is 44 years old, a woman, a former or current DoorDash driver? So, I mean, Tara, what is the defense doing with this woman? What is the government doing, or what have they done already with her?
Well, you know, we're speculating here, but what you would normally do, especially in a type of case like this, that's going to be really lengthy and long with a lot of witnesses, is if you're the state, you're going to be calling them in, you're going to be prepping them before they get up on the stand. Greg mentioned that, you know, this is high stakes. This is not something that you're going to throw somebody up on the stand who's unprepared and watch your case completely fall apart. So I would imagine that the state is meeting with each witness and talking through what the process and procedure looks like, and what the questions may be that they're going to be asking when they're in court. If there's physical evidence that they're going to be introducing, they might show that physical evidence to them in preparation for the trial. So all of those things. And this is a really tight timeline. The window, as this matter has been kind of going on, this case has been going on, the window they believe now, or what we know now, is that the homicides occurred in a 13-minute window. So from 4:07 a.m. to like 4:20 a.m. So, you know, the timeline is going to be critically important. And if this witness, this DoorDash driver, saw Bryan Kohberger, or who she believed to be Bryan Kohberger, at 3:59, that would have preceded the homicide. So that's a pretty critical piece. I saw him there outside the home, or looking in the windows, or whatever it is that she's going to testify to. To Greg's point, like, that shores up one of the elements that they have to prove. You know, identity is a huge issue in this case, but so is that timeline. I think the pushback is going to be, how can someone commit 4 murders in this way in a 13-minute window?
This was what was interesting to me the first time I ever heard it, from Lindsay Gandy. door dashing food at 4 a.m. is wild to me in and of itself. Lindsay, I guess you are old, but so am I, because I'm no longer. There was a time that I was door dashing at 4 a.m. Although there wasn't, because DoorDash didn't exist when I was doing that. But maybe ordering food or driving by a drive-through at that time, but no longer. So that's a great point. One of the other things going on here is, and this I thought was very fascinating to me. There's a guy named Jason Jensen. He is a private investigator who worked on the JonBenet Ramsey and O.J. Simpson case. And now he is organizing a volunteer-led search to look for the murder weapon. So Dr. Raj, Jason Jensen is putting together a team of civilian volunteers between the dates of June 21st, which is next week, and June 22nd, and they're going to search a 35-mile stretch between Moscow and Pullman, including highways 95 and 195, to look for this knife. Now, it sounds like, I guess, a noble cause. You've got a private investigator. He's doing this knife search because the murder weapon has never been found. But at the same time, this is really the job of investigators. I guess the bottom line question is, how come people seem to, on the one hand, you got the DoorDash driver who's not trying to insert herself into this, apparently. And now you've got this guy out of left field who's from OJ and JonBenet Ramsey saying, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to find this murder weapon for you. What is happening here?
One word: marketing. He's not marketing. He is marketing. First of all, he tells you, "Oh, I've been associated with this. I've been associated with that," to create credibility. But if you're sitting there, those people, those cases have come and gone. And where's his business now? But he says, "Wait a minute. Here's this guy comes up with this idea of getting us in the spotlight. And if we're doing something that gets us on spot, buddy, that's free advertising. And then if anybody else has issues with a case, well, they know they can call him."
By the way, it was Jack in the Box. My bad, not Popeyes. So please forgive fast food gods. Please forgive me. But Raj, this Cindy Hollenbeck is a friend of mine. She's been on the show, and she's has lived in Moscow, lives in Pullman now. And Raj, she says, insane, 13 minutes, my heart hurts. Whoever this was, and the accused is Bryan Kohberger, was able to violently murder 4 college students, one of them a large male, in 13 minutes, and didn't leave behind basically a shred of evidence except for a knife sheath that appears to have fallen. And if it hadn't, maybe this would have been the perfect crime. What is going on physically and psychologically, I guess, with adrenaline and whatever else, that a human can kill 4 others with a knife in that short window of time?
Well, what you're talking about is one word. It's called frenzy. How do people operate in a frenzy? Whether if you're cleaning the kitchen, well, it takes a long time. But what if I do it in a frenzy? And just luckily, I don't leave anything behind. That what we're seeing, I believe, is a frenzied killer. He picks the people he's going to, or she, who, I'm not putting an eye on anybody, but I'm just saying people in a frenzy can do a very large amount of damage in a very short amount of time. If you don't believe it, let go of a 2-year-old and see what happens in a short amount of time. Wow.
I've done that before. Luckily, that
they
still alive.
scare crap up left and right. And so that's all you got to do. You got to get in that mindset and that body and mental mindset and say, I'm the Lord of destruction, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to just destroy. And then that's how you do it.
Yeah, Jimmy McNutty, back to the knife searcher. This guy's not good. They never found the OJ knife. And Jimmy McNutty is an OJ trial watcher from '94, which I have to say every time I say his name.
I love that. love that.
Yeah. Tara, back to you. So, one of the other issues that's being discussed now through the legal channels is an alternate suspect theory. And basically, Judge Hippler said, well, look, if you're going to present an alternate suspect, you've got to come to me with some legitimate evidence. You can't just say, hey, Joe Schmo did it and just pin it on somebody. My question to you is, and it ties back to these 4 murders in 13 minutes. I mean, I've never killed anyone, thankfully, but apparently it is very difficult to do. And you couple that with almost no evidence. Wouldn't it benefit the defense to come up with one, or probably better yet for them, 2 others, and say, well, these 2 did it, not our guy? Because won't the jury have a very hard time wrapping their head around the fact that one person did this in that short a time period?
They certainly could. I think that's a risk here. And on the alternate perpetrator theory that they'd like to advance at trial, you can do 2 things, right? As a defense attorney, you can say, I didn't do it. And you really lean into reasonable doubt and poking holes in the investigation, what wasn't done, what wasn't complete. It's circumstantial evidence, and the way that you've connected the dots don't make sense. When you decide to put on a theory of an alternate perpetrator, you are doing something different. You are affirmatively saying, like, this other person did it. Not only did I not do it, this is the other person that did it. And so we don't know enough about this alternate theory or this alternate perpetrator theory, because everything is under seal, right? So we don't know if they're saying it could have been this other person, or it was actually this other person, and then putting on, the reasons why, the connections, and so on and so forth. So yes, I mean, it could be one person, it could be numerous people, but based on the arguments in court, it seems to be, if we're kind of reading between the lines here, that they're thinking of one person as the alternate perpetrator, not multiple.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But Greg, just to stay on this for a minute, is it a potential problem? I mean, these facts, and these aren't, I don't think, bad facts. These are just the facts that whomever did this did it in a very short window, 13 minutes. Are some jurors going to have a hard time buying that, Greg?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't mean to be sarcastic at all, but if you're going to kill somebody, you're not going to hang out for a half an hour. I mean, if this was a targeted killing, and he is in this sort of the frenzied state that the doctor talked about, you're going to get in, you're going to do your business in 13 minutes. I don't know. You could do a lot of stuff in 13 minutes. You could, especially in a closed quarters house, maybe some of the people were in adjoining rooms, same room, that type of thing. You go in, you do your business, you go to the next one, a minute or 2 with each one. I mean, you can do a whole lot of damage with a knife and something like that. So I don't know that the short time period is going to be a problem. I think a long time period would have been a greater problem if they say, well, he was there for an hour and a half. Like, what's everybody else doing during that time? So, I mean, I know that I just don't see it that the 13 minutes is an inordinately short period of time to commit this type of a crime.
Right. And I think that it would be easy to go find a case where someone has killed somebody in a very fast amount of time and bring that person in and present them and say, here's somebody who's done it. And right there, it killed that. It takes a long time to kill them. I believe there's some cases people, swope it, came in and killed real quick and got out. That it wasn't personal. It was just, it was just murders.
There's no truer comment than this from Thought Criminal. Listening to Joel talk for 10 minutes is a long time. And I'm glad you brought this up, Thought Criminal. I'm glad you brought this up. So Phil and Scott are not going to be here this Friday. And when I'm left alone, I get really bad ideas. We did a show the other day on Diddy, and I spent like the last half hour just responding to comments. And I thought about putting a little twist on it. I only listen to my family, STS Nation here. So what if Friday, Carm and I just do a show taking your comments? You can Remember Dear Abby? Well, Carm is a licensed therapist. It can be a problem situation with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It can be a situation with a child. It can be that you don't like people chewing gum near you. Whatever it is, let us know if you want to veer off of true crime on Friday. I've already got a title for this, and I'm planning to turn this into a 50 million person subscribed YouTube channel. I've got the best title, but let us know if you would like Carm and I, who has no idea that I'm thinking about doing this, if you would like us to talk in 10-minute clips reacting to your comments. I promise to talk less than Carm, which won't be difficult. So let us know.
Wait a minute. Let me interject.
Yes.
Your Carm is much more than a therapist.
Yes, she is.
In the world I grew up, they'd call her a pistol.
Yeah.
Pistol, man. You load her up and give her stuff, she will jack people up. That's different than, well, how you feeling?
Yeah.
And are you in your karma?
She'll give you the truth. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Back to this. Poetic Justice says, I think it was personal. It may have only been 13 minutes in the house, but I think you've been planning this for a long time. So, Greg, let's get back to the knife search. So, obviously, we know that there was touch DNA linked to the knife sheath. And again, if that knife sheath hadn't been found, who knows where we would be right now. But this guy says he spoke to Fox 13 in Seattle. And he says, the thing that I find most intriguing about it is the fact that the murder weapon is still missing. Jason Jensen, plans to search a 35-mile stretch between Moscow and Pullman, including highways 95 and 195, theorizing here that Kohberger may have panicked and tossed the weapon from his vehicle, similar to the behavior of serial killer Ted Bundy, with whom Kohberger was allegedly fascinated. And there has been a lot of discussion and links to him. If you are the government here, what is running through your head reading about this guy, Jason Jensen, now wanting to search for the murder weapon?
I don't think you're doing cartwheels over that one, Joel. I mean, I don't think that this is going to be the make or break of your case. In fact, it could hurt you maybe. Let's say he does find some knife in some area that you was completely opposite where you would expect a Kohberger to have gone. But even if he does find a knife, think about this. This crime occurred November of 22. It's 2.5 years ago. Is it going to be even recognizable in any way? Is it going to have DNA or blood or fingerprints or anything that's going to be of any value? Is it going to fit the sheath in the way that you would expect a knife to? So, I mean, this is pie in the sky. I mean, if you're the state, say, go look, but, go look in New Jersey for a couple of weeks until this trial's over, but don't bother us or don't mess up our case. I mean, sure, Jensen wants some publicity. Maybe he's got some good motives. Maybe he'll find something. I don't know. I just think it's not the kind of thing the state's interested in doing, or they'd have their own posse out looking for the knife. It's something that the area was probably combed after the homicide and nothing was found. That knife's probably in some landfill somewhere.
Yeah. Or at the bottom of a river, which is what Cindy Hollenbeck says, who's from there. Lindsay Gandy, I've got 99 problems and Carm is one. It looks like people overwhelmingly want this. People like to be tortured. So I will get Carm. And the thing about this for Carm is she doesn't have to really prepare, which she will love the most, because at her core, Carm is a delegator, but she doesn't like to do the homework, which is what I yell. And here we go. E. Erickson, that is great, Joel. Perfect tag. I think I'm going to do that this Friday. Let me get with Carm and make sure she will do it. She'll scream about how she doesn't want to do it for one reason or another. But so to you, Tara, same thing. Sticking on this knife search again, I just asked Greg about if you're the government. Well, what about if you're Ann Taylor? He says, and I quote this guy, Jason Jensen, who's the knife hunter. One of the things that Ted Bundy was notorious about, he would panic and as he was leaving the scene, throw things out of the car. So this guy is correlating Ted Bundy with Bryan Kohberger, which has been done by others, and saying there's a chance I can find this knife. I don't know how. I mean, talking about 35 miles. I mean, that's not a small area. 30. I'm assuming it's like a 35 square mile area. So he's going to take this team out there. if you're Ann Taylor, are you aggravated, annoyed? Are you just ignoring this guy? What are you doing?
I mean, I don't know that you're ignoring him, but he's very confident. Like, there was a lot of law enforcement officers and agents on this case. And as far as we know, right, we haven't seen the evidence. We haven't heard the testimony. No knife was found, but all of a sudden he's going to go in with a team and happen upon the knife. I mean, I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that. And also, if it's in the water in a river, like, it's gone. So, and then there's the other issue of, like, good luck getting it admitted. You find a knife. Okay. Does it have any particular distinguishing marks that would tie it to being the knife, that was used in the murders? What if it's some other K-bar knife that's out there? I mean,
wait a minute. What if it's the OJ knife?
Or it could be the OJ knife that's gone, out there.
Yeah, he did
right there.
If you remember, he did fly.
OJ's knife.
He flew from LA to Chicago. He could have
dropped out of the plane. I mean,
who
knows?
Yeah. Look at this, everyone. Carm has entered the chat, and she says to Rod, "Thanks. I am pistolish."
Wait a minute, Carmen. Since you're watching, you remind me of a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. You're Calvin. You are wide open, buddy.
Right now, Carm's going, what is Calvin and Hobbes? What?
Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, Joel, and say that's what Roger says you're doing. Someone
corrected me. I said Carm can't say her V's, but that's actually all she can say. She can't say her W's. So, Greg, let me come back to you here. If we find it, he says, this guy, promise this is the last knife hunting question, but he says, if we find it, the thing to do is freeze what we're doing, back out of the scene, call the police, because there may be other evidence present, not just the knife. And he says the search is taking place January 21 through January 22, and it could play a critical role. Greg, is this guy, you're not the psychologist, but is this guy absolutely delusional at this point?
I mean, that may not be the right word. If he's doing marketing, he's not delusional. He may be fairly smart. But, if you find a knife, if you think about, I've done homicide cases involving knives, and the medical examiner knows what the dimension of the knife was. The medical examiner knows how long the knife was. The medical examiner knows how wide the knife was. So that knife has to fit a certain dynamic, has to fit and has to fit in the sheath. So if there's something else that's going to be there, what that would be, I don't know. If there's something else connected to the knife, it's probably going to be on the knife. And even though I said earlier it's unlikely there'll be fingerprints or DNA or blood or something, that's about the only thing you would expect to find, which would make sense for this guy, Jensen, to say, if you see the knife, don't touch it. Let law enforcement get it, because you don't want to have your own prints on the knife when it comes to trial.
Joseph Rapp is not holding anything back. Knife search is stupid. I hope Jason Jensen is not listening, but we'll see. Imagine if they find this thing. We'll see what happens. But I guess crazier things have happened. But Tara Malik, to you, one of the things now in light of this Dateline, and we'll get into it a little bit because we had another panel on all things Dateline last week, but none of you were here, so I'd love to get your take. But one of the things that Ann Taylor is doing right now is asking for yet another continuance. She's saying essentially this Dateline episode, that there was a gag order violated, things are being leaked, and now she needs more time to prepare. What do you think the odds are that Judge Stephen Hippler is going to say, okay, it's been since 2022. We've given you, 3 years, and now our 2.5+ years. And now we're going to give you more time. Is this not going to start July 31st with jury selection?
I have a hard time believing that it is going to be continued out. And I have a hard time believing that because how does the passage of more time fix any of the issues? It's like the cat is out of the bag. There was a leak that's being dealt with a special prosecutor on a different track. There may or may not be contempt proceedings if they can find the person who leaked the information. But there are processes in place. We still have to go through jury selection, and both sides have had the ability to lean in and help craft the questions that are going to be asked to the jurors. It's going to be a long jury selection process. So we've got that procedure down. More time is not going to do much here, in my opinion. And as a general rule, more time is worse, especially for the state, for the prosecution, because people's memories change. And if you have a bunch of witnesses all queued up, I mean, we were already years out from the incident, from the murders, and it's not, your evidence usually doesn't get better, it gets worse. So I think there's a real risk here by continuing it out that the state could be prejudiced.
This is Jimmy McNutty knows everything about true crime. He also knows a lot of stuff about other random weird things, and he's like sports too. But interesting character. I met Jimmy McNutty, very nice guy. I did not know this. Mark Furman lives in Moscow. I knew he lived in Idaho, but I didn't know he lived in Moscow. He had the knife. So
no, I think he's actually in Sandpoint, Joel. Which
is, yeah,
it's just up higher, northern Arizona, north of Coeur d'Alene.
So Jimmy, get your facts straight.
What she's saying is he lives nowhere and take a left.
Yeah, exactly.
You've ever been up there? Well, that's a whole lot of nothing. Wow.
It's pretty nothing now. It's good looking nothing now. Raj, to you. So this Dateline episode, it aired back on my dog Ethel's birthday, May 9th. Also my friend Michael. Yes. And in this episode, you find out a lot of things, but among them that allegedly Bryan Kohberger was searching Ted Bundy on Google. He was doing porn searches for the word drugged, sleeping, passed out. His cell phone pings 23 times. And you also hear from people who crossed paths, literally on hiking trails, who crossed paths with him, who said he was very awkward. When you hear searching for Ted Bundy, drugged, sleeping, passed out, I know you don't diagnose people, but what is happening psychologically with Bryan Kohberger?
Really, what you're talking about, if it is him, he's focused. It's not like you're going to come up with 15 different ways to kill people. You're going to look at people who've done it before, how they do it, and you're going to emulate them if you think it's of value, especially, again, with that timeline, knowing how other people did it, and you doing it the same way makes you faster, makes your frenzy more productive.
Yeah. Greg, what are the chances? Because I think one of the plays from Ann Taylor is going to be, look, this violated the gag order, and now you need to suppress this evidence. You're not going to be able to, if you're Bill Thompson, if you're the government, you're not going to be able to tell people that he searched for Ted Bundy, that he was looking up drugged, sleeping, and passed out. How realistic? Because this would really, really hurt the government's case. How realistic is it that the show and whoever violated the gag order on presumably the government side, how serious is this in terms of possibly jeopardizing what can be admitted or not into evidence?
I would submit that it's not particularly dangerous to what can be submitted in evidence, and I'll tell you why. The reason the judge is upset about the Dateline airing is that the judge wants to have a jury that can decide the case based on the evidence that they hear at trial and not what they saw on Dateline. They want to make sure that whatever is presented at the court is brought in legally, is relevant to the case, was gathered legally, and isn't tainted in any way. So Dateline is a mess. It's a problem for the judge, especially with a smaller jurisdiction like Idaho. I mean, I know Boise and that Ada County area is the largest part of Idaho, but you don't have the jury pool that you have in Los Angeles or Chicago or something like that. So you want to make sure that you have a jury that's not tainted by anything they saw. And if you get there and the juror says, yeah, I watched the Dateline episode, you're probably going to boot them out unless they say it didn't mean anything to me. I didn't pay any attention to it or whatever. But that's the problem that the judge has, is he wants to have a fair trial, wants to make sure all the evidence comes in appropriately, and the jury makes a decision in a vacuum based on what they hear in the trial and not what they saw on TV.
Yeah. Interesting. And Dr. Raj, and then I'm coming back to Tara here. I'm not going to try to pronounce this. What stands out to me is, why would anyone go into a house where there were at least 4 cars parked in the driveway? Seems risky. So that morning, Raj, in the very wee hours, there were these cars parked there. Is it because of what you just said, that this guy had hyper focus, he was on a mission, and he didn't care? Is that why?
Yeah, imagine he being focused, being highly narcissistic, under the umbrella of, I don't give a crap if there's 15 cars there. I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof. He could have thought he was a superhero in his head and gone and done it in a frenzy, and to prove not that it could be done, that he could do it, that he had the special abilities to do it. And I would think the 4 cars were meaningless to him. He had a plan. He had a focus. He like Larry the Cable Guy. He got her done.
Got her done.
That's right.
Dana C here. Any new info released on the Prime docuseries? So we're inching closer, and I'm glad you asked, because ahead of Bryan Kohberger's August trial, excuse me, Prime Video is releasing a 4-part docuseries titled One Night in Idaho, The College Murderers. And it's coming out literally less than 2 weeks, Tara, before jury selection. The series features exclusive interviews with the families of the victims, shifting the spotlight away from the accused and back to those most affected. And I think it's based on a book that's coming out by James Patterson, who's, famous, murder mystery writer. Your thoughts on this, just 2 weeks out? We thought Dateline was bad. What if stuff is revealed here? And this is a big time author here who has literally sold millions upon millions of copies. And thank you to M. Ann Black. But what are your thoughts here about this docuseries coming out pretty much less than 2 weeks, or almost 2 weeks to the day from jury selection?
Well, I mean, that's not what you want to hear as an attorney. There's a documentary coming out 2 weeks before your jury selection. I think it's problematic. Absolutely problematic. I mean, the more information we're putting out, this gag order has been in place for a particular reason, right? It's been put in place in order to give the defendant a fair trial and to give the state a fair opportunity as well to put on their evidence, and for the jurors to hear what is appropriate to be heard and what is admissible. So when you have this type of information getting disseminated out so close to trial, especially, it creates all sorts of issues. It creates risks of, your jury pool being tainted, for instance, with information or misinformation. You have this side distraction of, which we did with the Dateline episode now, of, maybe there's going to be a special prosecutor appointed and there's going to be a side investigation. What do we do if we find the person or, who leaked the information? Then we have to have a contempt proceeding. So it is very distracting. It's very problematic, I would think, for the attorneys as well, because you have so much to prepare for when you're going into any normal trial. And this one in particular is going to be a massive undertaking by all sides. And to have an additional burden of dealing with, something like this at the last minute, you just don't have space for it. And they're going to have to make space for it. They're going to have to be diligent about probably watching it to make sure that there isn't some other leak or information that they think is coming from one side or the other's agent or law enforcement or whomever.
Yeah. These are all great points. And when I even was asking the question, I saw Greg shaking his head. So Greg, they've got a quote here from Ethan Chapin's triplet, Hunter. He says, there's this person out there who had just murdered our brother, and he's still out there, recalls Hunter Chapin, brother of Ethan, in the trailer. The series also includes comments from Stacy and Jim Chapin, Ethan Chapin's parents, Karen and Scott Laramie, the parents of Madison Mogen. And it explores not only the murders themselves, but the emotional fallout and the slow-moving legal process. what do you do if you're Judge Hippler? I saw it right here. Sharon Curlin says it should be blacked out in that state. There's in this country freedom of speech and the First Amendment. What, if anything, can Judge Hippler do? This could really complicate jury selection, couldn't it?
It could, but to answer the question, there's nothing that judge can do. You can't preemptively tell people not to watch a show because you don't know who's going to end up on your jury. So that would, in effect, black out the entire state of Idaho, or at least that area. And frankly, from cases that I've done that were high profile, Joel, the more you tell people not to watch something, the more you tell people to stay away and not turn on the TV, they're going to watch it just to see what it is that you're so worried about. So let it run its course. Don't. I mean, Dateline's, I don't know what show it's going to air on. You mentioned some network. I mean, maybe people haven't heard of it, won't know about it, and don't watch it. But when the jury comes in, when the venire comes in, the panel from which you pick the jury from, one of the questions you're going to ask is, what do you know about this case and what's been your source of information? And if somebody says, I watched this 4-part series, they're probably going to get booted off the jury. If they watch something, and if the series has the information that you're describing here, they're probably going to be told, sorry, you probably can't serve on our jury. But drawing attention to it's not going to help. And the judge doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. Jamie Lunas here. This is ridiculous trauma money. It is, by the way, being shown on Prime, which is Amazon, and it's mainly because Jeff Bezos is in a little bit of money trouble, so he needs a few extra dollars. So he is going to he's producing
he's
this.
He's got more problems than he's got money. Yeah. I would not want to be Bezos.
His biggest problem right now is he doesn't know where to dock his 390-foot, 5-foot yacht. But I obviously say that jokingly.
He needs to call Belichick and ask him some questions.
Yeah, I don't know why they're doing this other than obviously to get ratings and make James Patterson is not destitute either. So they asked Karen Laramie, who is Madison Mogen's mother, about this, and she says, and I quote, "I would say that the legal system is not about the victims, and I'll leave it at that." And it is true. I mean, one of the things is that it feels in a lot of ways like the victims' families are missing from the equation, and this is at least an outlet for them. Is that a good thing?
Yes, man. What a blessing to be left out. Oh yeah, include us. Man, I can't imagine how many times people say, I wish they would have never included me. I wish they would have stayed out of my life. They were picking through my garbage and it ruined my life. No, I think being excluded and just focusing on the case and the facts is the best that could happen in this.
Yeah. Raj, I want to come back to you in a second because there was more court filings that kind of give us a better glimpse into Bryan Kohberger's drug addiction. I want to get your take on that. But as we slowly wrap this up, Tara, back to the Dateline episode from May 9th. Obviously, Judge Hippler very upset. And we kind of discussed it a little bit, but I mean, when they do the jury questionnaire that goes out, are they going to have to include questions about Dateline and what sorts of questions?
I mean, they're going to ask questions to figure out what each one of these people has heard or seen or, been made aware of. So it may be specific to Dateline. It may not, maybe a lot broader than that. I mean, there are, podcasts and all sorts of YouTube channels and shows. And so I think the defense especially is going to want to know how have you been informing yourself, if at all, about this case and these issues. And I will just say, like, that pretrial publicity and the Dateline episode, or even this new one, that's not particularly good for the state either. I mean, if what is being presented and the way it's being presented is not the theory of the case that you're going to be advancing in court, and someone has heard about that and is a juror, they might have an issue and not believe the state's theory and say, yeah, I don't think that's it because what I heard on such and such show or whatever. I mean, it can mess up both sides, really, is my point.
Yeah. That's for sure. Hopefully it doesn't. But Dr. Raj, back to you on this, and then we'll get some final thoughts.
Yes, sir.
This Dateline episode. So they speak to people in this episode who at least crossed paths with Bryan Kohberger. He's described as awkward, socially off, isolated. And then there's been some court filings showing just how serious his addiction to heroin was when he was like 13 or 14 years old. Are there any sort of, I don't know, lasting impacts of heroin addiction that could have any correlation? I mean, look, there's a lot of former heroin addicts. If you survive, there's tons out there, and the vast majority, like 99.9%, are not killers. But is there anything here that you can see that, you know, would jump out to you as a reason behind Bryan Kohberger's motivations to kill here?
No, because you just did it there a minute ago, which is once you start saying the heroin had something to do later after he got off of it for killing, oh my goodness, the thousands of people that would be open to suspect around that issue would be incredible. There is not a direct link between people that, you know, illegally use medication and regular people, and especially in the area of homicide. I've not seen any report that would support that kind of idea.
Shout out to Melbourne, Australia. You've got a lot of people watching down under, to Annette Tui. If you don't know, now you know. Dr. Roger Rhodes is a family therapist in Greenville, South Carolina, originally from Oklahoma. That's why he's got a funny accent like the people down under.
Wait a minute. I speak God speak. Come on now. It's not funny, anything funny about it. Straight from the word of God. That's what I speak.
I actually, look at this, cold in Melbourne, because they're the opposite. That's a weird thought right now. So Dr. Raj,
yes,
he also, according to everyone, had no real close relationships, but he was deeply interested in criminal justice. He was pursuing his PhD in it, and he had this apparent fascination with Ted Bundy. Your final thoughts, having ended it on that note with you, no close friends, no personal relationships, obsessed with Ted Bundy. What are your final thoughts on this guy in this case?
Narcissism gone wild. Dysfunctional narcissist. You know, and nobody knows better than him. He is the beginning and the end. Very dysfunctional, and you know, when was it Milo Angelou who said, "People will tell you who they are, believe them."
Yeah, I don't know if it was her, but I know the phrase. So
yeah, I think that's the case here. I think, you know, people know. I mean, they can all remember when they went to school and there were people that were weird. Yeah, and you didn't have to hear that they were weird from other people. You just knew they were. They sent a weird vibe. He's one of those kids. He's just older.
Yeah, that's true. Poetic Justice, Joel, will you please post one rant? I did 3 of them, and for 3 different reasons. The COE never posted any of them, and then I just gave up and said, whatever. If there's a Karen Reed trial part 3, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll cover it. We'll see. I have thoughts on it now. I have definite thoughts on it. And one day I'll share it. And when I do, I will lose half of the people that follow me, because that's the Karen Reed trial. One half hates you and the other half loves you, no matter what you say. Tara Malik, she is a defense attorney in the great state of Idaho. I'm excited because I'm going to get to meet her if this is not continued. She travels around the state of Idaho. And with that, Tara Malik, I will end where I began. Is jury selection going to start July 31st? And will it begin on August 11th? And will I finally meet you? Or is this going to be pushed back further and further?
I don't think it's going to be pushed back. I think that it's going to move forward as scheduled. And yes, we will be in person as a result.
And thank you for that. Very concise little answers. Last but not least, Greg Skordas, you heard him. He's been practicing. I said almost 40, but he said 43 years. He needs to get more credit for being on ski patrol. Greg Skordas, I knew this was going to happen. Corey Richins, I was supposed to go out in April. They have now rescheduled the trial for February, when I will not be able to get a hotel room in Park City, Utah, because every single human being on earth is out there skiing. But I will nevertheless probably still come out and see you then. But that's Corey Richins. This is Bryan Kohberger. Do you agree with Tara? Does this thing kick off at the end of July with jury selection? Is Dateline going to be resolved? Is the DoorDash situation going to be resolved? And is this case going to happen?
It sounds like it probably is, Joel. All the things we've talked about today do not amount to enough to get this trial postponed one more time. We've talked about the new witness. We've talked about the Dateline. We've talked about the other 4-part series. I mean, those are the kind of things that are certainly hurdles. You deal with those when you deal with your jury, but not the kind of things that are going to get this trial continued. Defense may try. Who knows what can happen between now and July. But those, if I was a judge in this case, those would not be compelling enough of a reason to postpone this trial again.
There you go. You heard it from Greg, and you heard from Tara, and obviously the psychological aspect from Dr. Roger Rhodes. Tomorrow, COE, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost sure that there is a Bryan Kohberger hearing tomorrow that we are going to take live. And I will put out some tweets. You can follow me on Twitter or X at podcast STS, and on Instagram, where I post pictures of my beloved dogs and kids in that order. No, my kids and my dogs and my wife, at Surviving the Survivor on Instagram, at Surviving the Survivor. You can follow me there for show updates, but we'll bring you the Bryan Kohberger hearing tomorrow live, and then we'll be doing a show tomorrow evening. Steve Cohen is getting back to Florida on Wednesday, having celebrated the life of his mother who passed, and we are still thinking of Steve. Shout out to Space Coast and the mods. We will end COE. Love you, America. We'll see you tomorrow. Love you, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Utah, Park City, Utah, and Boise and Moscow, Idaho, and Justice. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? They're over here. Justice for these 4 whose lives were taken way, way, way too soon. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.